I can't believe it," Esme murmured to the empty chair, her voice a mere echo in the stillness of the room. She had just heard a thud from next door, followed by the sound of something heavy being dragged across the floor. The new neighbor was moving in, bringing with them a disturbance to the quiet solitude she had come to cherish. The walls were paper thin, and she could almost feel the vibrations of their presence as they unpacked. Each clank and thump was a stark reminder that the world outside her apartment continued to pulse with life, a stark contrast to the solemn rhythm she had grown accustomed to. She missed the days when Clara was the only other heartbeat she could feel through the walls, their laughter and whispers a sweet pattern of companionship. Esme glanced at the clock, noting that it was almost time for Clara's favorite show. With a heavy sigh, she turned the TV on, the laugh track filling the emptiness like a sad, mocking ghost. She had kept their evening routines, a silent tribute to the life they had shared, as if by going through the motions, she could somehow keep Clara's memory from fading away. Julianne, the new neighbor, was a whirlwind of colors and sounds, a stark contrast to the monochrome of Esme's world. The vibrancy of her paint-splattered clothes and the soulful melodies that often slipped through the cracks in the walls were like an unwelcome intrusion into her meticulously constructed cocoon of grief. Yet, something about her seemed to resonate with the dull ache in Esme's chest, a faint echo of a life she had once known. One evening, the aroma of something heavenly wafted from the kitchen next door, and despite herself, Esme found her stomach rumbling. It had been days since she had prepared Clara's meals, and the scent was a poignant reminder of the joy that had once filled this space. The door to Clara's memory was ever so slightly ajar, and Julianne's carefree laughter was seeping in. Esme couldn't ignore the curiosity growing within her. She peered through the peephole in the door, watching as Julianne danced around her kitchen, her hands a blur of motion as she cooked. The sight was so foreign, so alive, that Esme felt a flicker of something she hadn't felt in ages: envy. She missed the days when their apartment had been a stage for Clara's culinary adventures, their laughter mixing with the sizzle of onions and the clink of glasses. The scent grew stronger, and before she knew it, Esme found herself knocking tentatively on Julianne's door. Julianne swung it open with a grin, the warmth of the room enveloping her like a comforting embrace. The artist looked surprised but not unwelcoming, the kitchen behind her a canvas of spices and chopped vegetables. "You must be my neighbor," she said, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "I'm Julianne. And you are?" Esme stepped into the unfamiliar space, her eyes darting around the room, taking in the vibrant paintings that lined the walls and the chaotic beauty of Julianne's living space. "I'm Esme," she managed to say, her voice a little shakier than she would have liked. Julianne's smile didn't waver as she offered her a plate of steaming, fragrant food. "I've made way too much. Would you like to join me?" The food was a symphony of flavors, a celebration of life that Clara would have adored. Esme took a bite, and for a moment, she could almost feel Clara's presence beside her, the ghost of her, laughter in her ears. She looked up to find Julianne watching her, a gentle question in her eyes. "It's delicious," Esme murmured, her throat tight with unshed tears. "Thank you." Julianne's gaze was understanding, and she didn't push for more. They sat in a comfortable silence, the only sound the clinking of forks against plates. It was the first time in years that Esme had shared a meal with someone other than Clara's ghost, and it was both unsettling and oddly comforting. The weight of her solitude seemed to lighten just a little, the walls of her grief ever so slightly less impenetrable. As they ate, Julianne spoke of her art, her words painting a picture of a world full of beauty and passion that Esme had long forgotten. Her curiosity grew, and she found herself asking questions, seeking more of the vivid life that Julianne seemed to carry with her. And as the hours passed, Esme realized that maybe, just maybe, she had been living a lie all along. Perhaps Clara wouldn't want her to be trapped in a prison of sorrow, but instead, to embrace the world she had left behind. The conversation turned to Clara, and Esme felt the familiar lump in her throat. Julianne's eyes softened. She listened to the story of their love and loss. "I'm sorry," she said simply, reaching out to cover Esme's hand with her own. "But maybe it's time to let her go. Not forget her, but to live for her, not just with her memory." Esme's heart skipped a beat. It was a thought she had never allowed herself to entertain. Was it possible to find happiness without betraying Clara's memory? Julianne's words planted a seed of doubt, a glimmer of hope that grew brighter with each passing moment. As the night grew late, Esme retreated to her apartment, the plate of food a silent promise of future shared meals. She looked at Clara's chair, feeling a twinge of guilt. Julianne had unknowingly cracked the foundation of her self-imposed exile, and Esme wasn't sure she wanted to put it back together. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, she considered the possibility of a future filled with more than just the echoes of her past. The next day, she found herself humming Clara's favorite tune while making coffee, the melody intertwining with the faint sound of Julianne's laughter coming from next door. It was a strange sensation, this blending of the old and the new, but it didn't feel wrong. In fact, it felt almost natural. She found herself smiling at the thought of sharing Clara's stories with Julianne, of showing her the person who had once brought so much color to her world. The days grew into weeks, and Julianne's persistent warmth began to thaw Esme's frozen heart. They started to have dinner together almost every night, the conversations growing deeper and more meaningful with each shared meal. Julianne spoke of her art, her travels, her past loves, and her hopes for the future, and Esme, ever so slowly, started to open up about Clara, the joy and pain of their love, the guilt that haunted her every waking moment. Julianne never pressured her, never suggested that Clara could be replaced. Instead, she offered a gentle nudge towards healing, a hand to hold as Esme tiptoed towards the light, and as the weeks turned into months, Esme found that the walls of her grief had grown translucent, allowing the vibrancy of life to seep in. The empty chair remained, but the space next to her in bed grew smaller, filled with the comfort of a new presence. One evening, as they sat on the floor of Julianne's living room, surrounded by paintings and the warm glow of candles, Esme looked into the artist's eyes and saw a reflection of her own pain, a shared understanding that grew into something more. Julianne leaned in, her breath warm against Esme's cheek, and for a moment, the world held its breath. Then, with a tremble that seemed to shake the very foundation of her being, Esme leaned in too. Their kiss was a soft whisper of hope, a tentative promise that perhaps love could bloom again amidst the ruins of loss. Julianne's touch was gentle, almost reverent, as if she knew she was handling something fragile and precious. And in that moment, Esme felt a weight lift from her chest, a burden she had carried for so long that she had forgotten its weight. But, as they pulled away, reality crashed back down. Clara's ghost hovered at the edges of her mind, a silent reminder of the love that had once defined her. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she whispered, "What does this mean? How can I love again?" Julianne held her close, her voice a soothing calm. "It means you're alive, Esme, and it's okay to love again. Clara wouldn't want you to be anything but happy." The conversation grew serious as they discussed the complexities of moving on, of honoring the past while embracing the future. Julianne admitted her fears of not being enough, of being a mere shadow to the love Esme had lost. But Esme knew that she wasn't looking for someone to replace Clara. She was searching for someone to help her live again. Together, they faced the challenge of blending their worlds, of finding a balance between remembering and moving forward. It was a delicate dance, one that required patience and understanding. Yet, as they stumbled and stepped on each other's toes, they grew closer, their bond deepening with every shared smile and whispered secret. And so, the apartment walls that had once held only the echoes of a lost love now reverberated with the sounds of two hearts learning to beat in tandem. The scent of Clara's favorite meals mingled with the aroma of Julianne's exotic dishes, and the laughter of new memories began to fill the spaces ants occupied by sorrow. The line between the past and the present grew blurred, and Esme discovered that love, like the most vivid of Julianne's paintings, could be layered with shades of joy and pain, a masterpiece that never truly ceased to evolve.